Congratulations, you've made it to the phone interview. You are steps away from landing an on-campus interview. What can you do to give a strong response? I've got 5 tips coming up right now. Hi everyone, I'm Leigh from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia to make your best impact. Today, we are talking about how to give a good phone interview. So if you've made it this far in the job process, you know you are super close, right, to landing that on-campus interview. You just need to nail the phone interview. So I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you be able to be successful, stand out, and leave a really good impression with the search committee. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you before we get into these tips is that it is very difficult to prepare for a phone interview. Each one's different. There's no set length. They can be as short as 20 minutes. They can be as long as an hour. The average is probably about 30 minutes, which means you're going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 questions being asked in a 30-minute time span. Those questions can be about literally anything, all right? It's very difficult to predict what they're going to be about, and it's not good taste to ask the search committee chair if they'll give you the questions in advance, because they won't do that, okay? So you need to be obviously familiar with the position. You need to have read through the programs that you'd be involved in teaching a little bit, right? You need to just sort of have an awareness about the people that you would be working with, the people that are on the search committee, etc. But once you get that awareness, then what can you do, given that there's no real way to predict what committees are going to ask? What can you do to stand out? Here we go with the 5 things that you can do. Number 1, listen to the question being asked, okay? Write it down. I would have a piece of paper, a notebook or something in front of me. Write that question down so you can look at it and make sure that you're answering it. Think of it like your research question in a way, right? Everything should be connected to that question. Ask for clarification if you need it. There's no shame, no harm, no foul in that. Number 2, answer the question being asked, and only answer the question being asked. You don't need to go off on side tangents or start talking about other kind of sort of related things. Just answer the question being asked. And when you do this, you don't obviously want to be too short, but try to keep it on the somewhat concise side. So if you know that you're supposed to be answering 3 questions in 20 minutes, you don't want to take 10 minutes on one question. It's a little tricky because you can get nervous, and sometimes when people get nervous, they might talk more, or they might talk less, they might talk faster, or they might talk slower. Be mindful of who you are when you get stressed so you can monitor that, and then just focus on answering that question, give a good answer, and then move on. All right, number 3, make sure that you're able to explain your teaching and research philosophy and your research trajectory. Now, you may not be asked to discuss these things at all, depending on the position, or you might be asked to discuss one but not the other. But just have a nice, concise summary that you're comfortable saying. Maybe practice it in advance. You don't want to read it off a piece of paper, particularly if it's like a video conference situation. Just in case, so that you're comfortable, you have a nice answer, you're ready to go. Number 4, make sure you know why you're interested in the position. This is actually a very common question, like what made you apply? Why are you interested in coming here? If you're a doctoral student, they'll ask you, but if you are an assistant professor or an associate professor, if you're changing positions, sometimes they will ask you what appeals to you, why you want to change positions. So just be able to explain why you're interested in that position. And then finally, tip number 5, have 3 to 5 questions of your own prepared for the committee. Usually the last 5 or so minutes is reserved for you to ask at least one question. I say 3 to 5 questions because some of the questions that you might ask might actually get answered over the course of the conversation that you have during the phone interview. So you want to have more than you can reasonably ask, and I would prioritize them. And then if none of them get answered during the phone interview, when you get to that point, you can start with question 1, right? And just ask 1 or 2 depending on the time frame. You'll have a good sense of that. If your first question was already answered, then you don't need to ask it, and you have backups, right? So you don't have to think on your feet. You are prepared. All right, so now that's how to stand out in a good phone interview. If you want more tips, not just on phone interviews, but on things like how to do a CV really well, how to identify references, how to write high quality teaching and research statements, how to give a good job talk, I have a link in my show notes here course that I have on tips and tools for landing your academic dream job. So click on that link, sign up for it. It's going to help you land the job that you want to have.